Good morning, family. Welcome to Chunshimwan Morning Devotion. Today is Monday, February 12th. Let's begin by greeting our beloved Heavenly Parent and true parents. Chunjian, Champumanamge, Kyungbe. Paro. Now for our family pledge, let's welcome Pastor Milhan Stevens.
가정 맹세 1. 천혜의국 주인 우리 가정은 참사랑을 중심하고 번향 땅을 찾아 번연의 창조의 상인 지상 천국과 천상 천국을 창건할 것을 맹세하나이다. 2. 천혜의국 주인 우리 가정은 참사랑을 중심하고 하늘 부모님과 참 부모님을 모시어 전주의 대표적 가정이 되며 중심적 자연이 되어 가정에서는 효자, 국가에서는 중심, 세계에서는 성인, 천주에서는 성자의 가정의 도리를 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다. 3. 천혜의국 주인 우리 가정은 참사랑을 중심하고 4대 심정권과 3대 왕권과 황족권을 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다. 4. 천혜의국 주인 우리 가정은 참사랑을 중심하고 하늘 부모님의 창조 이상인 천주대 가족을 형성하여 자유와 평화와 통일과 행복의 세계를 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다. 5. 천혜의국 주인 우리 가정은 참사랑을 중심하고 매일 주체적 천상세계와 대상적 지상세계의 통일을 향해 전진적 발전을 촉진화할 것을 맹세하나이다. 6. 천혜의국 주인 우리 가정은 참사랑을 중심하고 하늘 부모님과 참 부모님의 대신 가정으로서 천운을 움직이는 가정이 되어 하늘의 축복을 주변에 연결시키는 가정을 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다. 7. 천혜의국 주인 우리 가정은 참사랑을 중심하고 본연의 혈통과 연결된 위하는 생활을 통하여 심정문화 세계를 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다. 8. 천혜의국 주인 우리 가정은 참사랑을 중심하고 천혜의국 시대를 맞이하여 절대 신앙, 절대 사랑, 절대 복종으로 신인의 일체 이상을 이루어 지상 천국과 천상 천국의 해방권과 석방권을 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다.
Thank you, Pastor Milhan. Now for our opening prayer, I'd like to invite Marlena Ryan. Marlena, would you please unmute and pray for us today?
Sorry, I'm driving.
Okay, all right, if you don't want to.
I'm very unmuted, so I'll say something.
Oh, thank you.
Dear Heavenly Parent, please be with us while we eat today and for the rest of the day. Thank you and honor you.
Thank you, Marlena. Thank you. God bless you.
Well,
Right now. My family, now it's time for our Hundoke reading. We're reading from the Mother of Peace, our True Mother's Memoir, and we're up to episode 30. Thank you. Pastor Milhan.
Good morning. Thank you, and Kathleen, and Marlena, for your prayer on the road. And this time I'd like to invite someone who'd like to volunteer. Read this wonderful passage this morning. Oh, Reverend Corley. Thank you.
A memoir by Akjahan Moon, Chapter 4. God's light shines upon a path of thorns, pages 137 to 142. July 20th, 1984 is a day I wish I could erase from history. On that day, my husband left our home and was incarcerated in Danbury Prison. As we departed at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. that evening, he gave words of hope and encouragement to our members who had gathered at Belvedere. With several members, we drove to the prison. I was resolved not to reveal my emotions. Father Moon had asked the members to dispel their anger and sadness. Do not cry for me, he told them, pray for America. A feeling of deep darkness descended as we watched Father Moon enter the prison. We stood for a long time at the entrance as if my husband might just turn around and come back out. With a sigh, I consoled everyone and we turned and walked away. My husband was embarking upon an unfair prison term in a foreign land, and I knew that I had to forgive the people who had put him there. It was our opportunity to practice our movement's most fundamental ethic: love your enemies and live for their sake. Sacrificing oneself in the face of death and going even further to forgive and love those who accuse and deceive is what we came to call the Danbury Spirit. The Danbury Spirit is to give and give even after everything has been taken away, to forgive those involved, then to persevere, knowing something greater is bound to occur in accord with the heavenly will. The road was dark on our nighttime journey home. My experiences during the more than 10 years of living in the United States had been more numerous than the pebbles along a riverbank. There were the speaking tours in which we traveled the continent. There were the path-breaking conferences that reshaped the world of scientists, professors, theologians, and clergy. There was the youth with boundless energy welcoming new life in God's love. That road had been strenuous but incredibly rewarding, and in that light my husband's imprisonment was a painful pill to swallow, a heavy cross to bear. As a wife, I was also dealing with personal pain. My husband was nearing 65 years of age and facing a prison life by himself in the United States, barely knowing the English language would not be easy. It had not been so long since I had given birth to our 14th child. I had been with my husband every time he appeared in a courtroom, before a congressional panel, or speaking to our members. And now this. It was very hard on my mind and body. Amid all this, I had to fill the leadership vacuum created by his absence. My husband knew my thoughts and focused himself and me and our movement on the way forward. The first thing next morning, there he was on the phone. Share these words with the members, he told me. Ignite the signal fire for Christianity according to the call of God. I shared his words with our leaders and members, energized by my husband. I knew what we had to do. Now God had given us our next opportunity, I told them. We must achieve what we are called to do on the foundation of all that we have accomplished so far. Through constructive activity and sincere spiritual conditions, God's heart will be moved. Our sincere devotion will bring Satan to surrender. Now is the time. History will record this as a welcoming of a new age. There is a saying that when it rains, it pours, and indeed on my path forward, almost before I could catch my breath, I ran headlong into another unexpected misfortune. A core leader of our movement who had pioneered the principle in America and who had actively defended my husband and me in the United States suddenly went missing. We soon learned that Dr. Bohi Pak had been kidnapped and was locked up in a cellar somewhere in New York City. His captors declared themselves ready to kill him. We had been exposing communist subversion through the News World and the Washington Times and demonstrating Marxist ideological claims before tens of thousands of American clergy through Causa. Communists were enraged that the religious freedom of the United States had allowed our movement such influence. Lacking the police apparatus they would have had in North Korea, one leftist cell's ability to act against it was limited. But now, considering us vulnerable with the absence of Father Moon, they resorted to violent criminality and kidnapped Dr. Park. With my husband in prison, I had to solve the problem. The first thing I did was earnestly pray that the saintly man who had been abducted would hear my voice. Then I phoned the United States Senator Orrin Hatch. Senator Hatch was a warm-hearted, fair-minded man who had spoken out on our behalf during the congressional hearings. This abduction is not based on personal resentment, nor is it for money, I informed him. It is an attack on a man who is unmasking their wickedness through the media and through education. Senator Hatch responded that he would ask the FBI to investigate immediately. Lawyers and my trusted advisors told me that the FBI opening an investigation would increase the likelihood of violence on the part of the kidnappers and that it would be better to negotiate. I could not agree, and I continued my desperate prayer. As Dr. Park shared with us later, his circumstances soon worsened. The kidnappers beat him severely and applied electric shocks. He lost consciousness and fell onto a cold basement floor. At that time, he heard a voice. There is not much time, but they will not harm you further today. You will preserve your life if you escape within 12 hours. You can do it. Use whatever means are available. Dr. Park heard my prayers in a dream. He regained consciousness and determined to escape. Using wisdom, Dr. Park got his kidnappers to relax the conditions of his captivity and managed to escape. The next day he returned home. I met him soon after that, and he gave me a full account of what happened. The voice of True Mother, which I heard in the darkness, sounded like the voice and revelation of God. Your words awakened me suddenly and gave me the wisdom and power to outwit my captors. As such events unfolded, a very difficult time turned into a time in which I was full of vigor. My desire to impart merciful love only deepened. Each day was rich with emotions, including cherished moments in which my husband shared with me his affection. At the start of each day, after he finished praying at 5 a.m., he would call me from a prison payphone and greet me with, "My beloved mother." I was permitted to visit him at the prison every other day, and I would be driven there in a convertible, and when weather permitted, I would put the top down as we ascended the final hill on the prison grounds. Rain or shine, my husband always came out and waited for our arrival. With a longing heart, I would smile brightly and wave from the car. Sometimes he would look totally worn out, having just finished mopping a floor or washing dishes. What wife would feel comfortable seeing her husband like that? But I would suppress my sorrow and hug him with a bright smile. I often brought our 2-year-old daughter, Jungjin, for he would be so happy to receive and embrace her. When our brief meetings ended, my husband would send us off. As we drove back down the hill, worried tears would start to fall from my eyes. Wishing not to turn my face toward him and expose my weeping, I would just keep my face forward while waving goodbye. I knew that my husband would remain in place, his eyes fixed upon me, a prayer in his heart, waving silently until we were out of sight. For the 13 months of Father Moon's imprisonment, I was coping with feelings of sorrow and injustice, but my responsibility to lead our church and the Providence came first. I felt responsible for inspiring our members around the world while maintaining a firm axis with my husband around which they would revolve. Unwavering in their life of faith with God's intervention, we actually enjoyed a sense of stability. When my husband was in prison, media professionals around the world gossiped and cynically predicted that the Unification Church would disappear. Some members of the media seemed to be anxiously waiting for that to happen, hoping to proclaim happily, "We told you so." The Unification Church is an empty shell cracking like an egg with nothing inside. Its so-called believers are heading for the hills. That did not happen. Quite the opposite. The number of our members and allies only increased. People understood that the US government had sent Father Moon to serve an unjust prison sentence for the crime of dedicating his life for the salvation of humanity. In their innermost hearts, all people cherish religious freedom.
Thank you, Reverend Corley.
Reverend Corley. Okay. Are there any key words, favorite passages, reflections? Is that Dr. Stewart? Is that you wanting to say something? Maybe not.
I just mentioned maybe
Yes.
something from it's connected with today's, but it's actually from yesterday's. It was the fact that it took 3 grand juries to indict Father shows that it was not nobody thought that he should be indicted for something as minimal as $7,000. And the fact I hadn't known that before, I didn't realize it took 3 grand juries to indict Father. It was only on the 3rd attempt that they were successful. So that tells you something very clearly. Yeah. So I just want to mention that. Yeah. That's from yesterday's reading. Yeah.
It's pretty clear. So you get an idea of all the powers that don't like change. You know, it was yesterday. I forget what it was, but somehow this persecution came up, and Ayumi was asking, so why would some? Oh, it was at the Songhua ceremony. Calvin, he shared testimony about about him joining the church, first meeting us, and he realized he didn't know who we were at first. He came to the event. When he realized who we were, he wanted to get out of there. We went to the bathroom and like try to hatch some kind of plan to escape this place without, he didn't want to be impolite, but he wanted to leave. Of course, he ended up joining our church, but Ayumi was asking, so why would he want to leave? Why would he, it's like she didn't understand that we were persecuted, and so I explained to her. It's like our church was we were growing very fast, and so people were jealous, and people were afraid because they didn't know who we were. And so she didn't understand like people being afraid that we were growing too fast, but we just explained to her, yeah, basically other people became the green-eyed monster. The green-eyed monster is like this little jealous, monster who is just, instead of being happy for someone else's growth, they are, for what they have, they want to hurt or, take it for themselves. So it's, it was interesting having to explain this to her. When I meet people who don't know about our movement, I often tell them early on that we were persecuted. That way, when they go online, they see all the stuff. They've already heard it from someone inside the church that, yeah, we're persecuted. We have haters, But let's face it, anyone who's big has haters, right? So I think most people understand that concept. So it's not something that I think we should be discouraged by. I think it should be a badge of honor. In fact, Caleb, he's always on the internet. And Saturday Night Live, they did a little skit making fun of our mess, matching, blessing. Not the whole thing about us, but it was like crazy couples. And then they give one example was like, oh yeah, we didn't know each other, but our religious leader put us together. And he was like, oh well, girl, you're crazy. But Caleb, when he saw that, he said, wow, that they would even think about you or poke fun at you. It just shows that you're a power to be reckoned with, a force to be reckoned with. And so it's a kind of a compliment in a way. And for those who know about how people are persecuted, they also can see that. Like Melissa, right? Melissa found us how? On TikTok. And she saw all these beautiful couples at the blessing. And then there were all these negative comments. And she looked at that. She's like, how do people, first of all, these people are happy and they have what I want. They're married, and it's like, and not to mention it's love. Why are you attacking love? It didn't make sense to her. Because of that, she knew something good was going on here. And so that's why she went to our church in the first place. So, I guess my point is, persecution, it's a sign of it's not easy, it's not fun to take, but it is a compliment. It is a sign that we are growing. So, yeah, anyway.
It's really true, Pastor Milhan, because before the church, when I was living in Tarrytown, I used to get the Tarrytown local newspaper every day. And I used to read those magazines, Family Circle and Women's something or other. And every day there would be an article about the Unification Church, a negative article. And all it did was make me more curious. I wanted to know more and more about it. And it just so happened that one of my friends, his backyard was attached to the backyard of Jacob House. And when he found out that Unification Church was they were all living there, I asked him to drive, no, not Jacob, yeah, Jacob House. I asked him to drive me down that road, the road where White House is and Jacob House. So, and we we turned off the lights of his car because I didn't want anybody to know. And we drove past White House and we parked the car. And I was trying to see what I could see. I was thinking all kinds of things was going on inside that house. But there was a lot of vans in the driveway. And I remember saying, see, they're breaking the zones. They're breaking the zoning laws. Because in the newspaper, they said that, we were always, Unification was breaking all these zoning laws. There was about, 5 or 6 vans in the driveway. And I was expecting to see people hanging from meat hooks and being tortured and all kinds of horrible things I was expecting.
Wow.
So all the persecution just made me more curious and made me want to know more and more and more about the church. And even my friend was like afraid about me being so curious about the church, trying to keep me away. But there's just something really was driving me to know more and more about the church. So persecution can be good.
I was on YouTube yesterday, and there was a video of someone who became unwoke. If you know what that means, but he described his experience in detail of how it started with a friend that he trusted and he didn't always agree with, but he knew him as a good person, level-headed, and he just said, hey, you know what, I think you should read this book. So he gave him a book, He didn't say what it was, but it had something to do with probably conservative principles and values. And, he described how when he first picked it up, like he just read the first few sentences. He was already like, these people are evil. And he had to go through all of this stuff. And he couldn't read for a few weeks, he just put it down. But then he was like, he asked himself, why am I reacting this way? Why can't I read a book? Like, so he realized something was wrong with him. And like, he should have the freedom to read whatever book he wants to read. Right. So when that was like his first point. And so then he started to read it some more. It was still painful to read because he couldn't agree with anything. Oh, these people are so intolerant and evil. But he kept reading anyway because he was fueled by this desire to be free, to read whatever he wanted to read, without without someone else's influence. And then he started to realize how, he had been lied to. Yet he still had that emotional reaction. See, so I mean, persecution, it does create problems, because what happens is it conditions people to have a negative reaction, knee-jerk reaction to when they see something. But that's how evil it is. When you hear if you're in the media or whatever, and it's just so negative towards one person, it does do harm. So I don't want to, what do you call it? The persecution is bad. Trust me, it is bad. And Mother does not like persecution. I don't think not trying to create more persecution. But for those who can take off the label that's been put on our church, then he described how after some time he became so hungry for truth, so hungry for knowledge, because he had just woken up of like how starved he was for truth. And it was so much stronger than any kind of hatred or fear that he had before. So I don't know. It just reminded me about how difficult it is to have one spiritual child, because they have to overcome a lot of things. But the whole thing started with love, trust. Like, okay, this is someone that I can trust, so I'm willing to give it a shot. But had it not been for that, I'm sure the hate and fear would have been too big for him to overcome. So, yeah, just wanted to share that. Auntie Vera.
I'm sure we're all familiar with the video that was made on the day when True Father left East Garden, how all the children came to True Father and bowed and hugged and kissed him. And children were crying, and True Mother was crying. And I can never forget that feeling. True Mother, she knows True Father so well. She knows his schedule. She knows what a good man he is and how much he's sacrificing. And the world is just mistreating him so badly. I think it hurt her so much. I don't know if we can even begin to understand what she went through, how painful it was, and how angry she was with the American government and the people, the judges and the lawyers, and even nobody was able to really pin down exactly, who True Father was and what kind of life he was really living. It was such an unjust experience. And that's what I felt when we were reading this morning. That really came through this reading so much. The True Mother was so hurt and that she had really worked to work and pray so hard to overcome. And then, what she finally did was greet true Father every day with a big smile and give him a big hug. But then the moment when she had to leave, she had to hold back her tears again. Every day the same for all these months. So, yeah, that's our true mother. Yeah, I love her for that. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, for mother
You know,
to say,
Pastor,
oh, go ahead.
when True Mother spoke about how she prayed and hoped that Colonel Park would hear her voice in a dream, that reminds me of the early days when there was so much spiritual phenomenon going on in our church in the early days. And when Damon and them had dreams and different people had dreams. It's pretty amazing that True Mother could pray and send her thoughts and her words to Colonel Park, that he could receive it in a dream and wake up and know that he should escape, that he can escape. That kind of spiritual phenomenon is quite beautiful, actually.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like we're all imprisoned to some extent and need to rely on prayer for guidance. Because it does kind of remind me of uh, inside the belly church. Not coming to me, but the one she was supposed to have listened to True Father. And, I mean, she heard it directly from Father. Please just lie and get out of prison. But she didn't take his advice. So in the same way, we all need to have a very strong discernment as all the time, if not as much as possible, to listen, seek God's guidance, because you don't know if it's life or death sometimes. So, but it's also good too. It's beautiful to ride the way that God is guiding us. That is always the best life. For Auntie Vera, again, I feel for Mother to say that I wish I could erase this from my memory, it's not something you hear true parents say. Because a lot of times they'll take history and, okay, this is restoration and this is that and this. But to say, I wish I could remove it from history, that's a kind of pain that it's different. It's a different kind. It's like something that should not have happened. It really should not have happened. That America, this free country, right? It's like true parents come here and they, maybe naively, but still, they believed America was a God-centered nation. And how much Jesus sacrificed, Christianity has sacrificed so that America could be born. And then only to find that they're corrupt just like any other nation. That must have been so discouraging, especially for how much true parents have invested in America and believed in America. And thought like, yeah, it was, how discouraging that was. Yeah, providentially, of course, personally as well, as a wife. Yeah, all these children, and how could America be so heartless? Let's see my last one. Well, this section I like to always mention. I mean, this is very similar to how our church is today. And here it reads, we actually enjoyed a sense of stability. That as chaotic as we assumed it would be when Father left, that everything would just be, there'd be no order and people would just follow whoever they wanted. And that might have happened to some extent, but for anyone who understands reading Mother's playbook, you realize, wow, this is a great time to be a leader. This is a great time to be in this church. Mother provides a lot of stability, level-headedness. She makes decisions that are informed and much more stable. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I've had different leadership roles throughout my life, and I never went all in until now, till Mother came in. So, yeah, I'm so grateful for your mother. I can't. I can only benefit from what she sacrificed for. I'm deeply inspired by her vision, and I can totally see when I at the Songhua, I did the Ogmanseis, and of course there were quite a few non-members in the room, and so I was asked if I can explain what an Ogmansei is, and so I explained, well, this is a send-off, and I said, for those of you who don't know, and then I said, for those unificationists who don't know, Ogmansei, I did the math, it's 10 trillion years. Ogman is 1 billion times a 10,000, 10 trillion years. 10 trillion years of glory to God and victory for parents. And it's like, I just remind people that's a long time. That's a very long time. And I trust your mother to set that foundation so that 10,000 year empire can be built. Not 10,000, but 10 trillion year empire can be built for peace and in the world. I trust Mother. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pastor Milhan, and thank you everyone for your sharing. Thank you again, Marlena, for your prayer. All right, brothers and sisters, today's day 37 of our 40-day period of devotion to usher a victorious entrance into Chunwon-gun and the Channel Sanctum and for True Parents' birthday. Do we have prayer requests today? All right, then, let's get ready for our residence prayer. We'll begin with 3 Abuji Omanis.
Country One Residence Prayer, Shijak, Abaje, Obane, Abaje, Omone, Abaje, Omone.
Let's pray.
Thank you so very much.
Divine God,
For this amazing morning of sharing.
Heavenly eternal, see you to the
Sharing our hearts. And we come before you. Entering
Father,
our
this
true mother. God wants you so much.
Saturday,
He got you so much. Help us
before you,
at our mind and heart. Speak mind and heart.
dearly,
That we are
Father,
one another.
trust it.
The
Father, affection,
cosmic
pity, portion of responsibility.
we have
They are
She was here Thursday. Yesterday she was in for a little while. It worked for like 4 hours.
Amazing capacity.
Lord,
Yes.
uh,
heard that
children,
nice
capacity,
okay.
true health,
Joe might have seen her.
healing,
Yeah, you can.
needs, recognize true courage and needs,
How we can do it? Secure.
all I had
It's not
really do
Father
it,
God, how you bless and
Before
understand it,
There's a part of it that feels like the
dwelling place.
concerning the blessing of marriage.
restoration, you acknowledge
come together as one community
what
to
we
God
Secure.
gathering,
Cheryl.
which is
You are direct.
grateful that you have adjusted our minds,
Facility.
Father God,
in the body of Christ. Thank you for the
Moment.
eternal
Past.
life. Thank you for the victorious strength.
2,000 years
words of
Skeleton.
our mouths and the meditation of our heart.
One thing and champion transformation.
Go over.
Thank you for the wonderful
And then beyond.
thank you
All
for
this
the wonderful
secure.
Promise I hear, promise,
Or unsecure.
promise,
Out. It has been
thank you. Thank you so
thousand
very much,
years.
Father, for the
You are
Jesus gave everything,
reaching
everything,
up
leave nothing uncovered,
this
everything. Even when
I
we went back
as a
to
most core.
members to so many
obey the all the decisions that he showed
You are
life,
which was not easy.
Cheryl.
we follow you
Used
All
to
to righteousness, God.
very impressive.
Heavenly Holy Community.
side.
Where we
He was a young man, dear
Pray
God.
that
complete our
continue to hear
personal
about marriage.
responsibility.
Didn't understand until he understand. We
For
must be
Understand
morally clean, morally pure,
Cheryl
to do your
can
will,
be
Father God.
pray
held.
And I pray for America this morning, dear God. I pray
Ella
that the immorality,
in
violence,
importance
killing,
over your war.
America take over.
Clearly
We do
indicate
more righteous in
that we
America,
can
more righteous, dear God.
We want to
We
bring
the beautiful
in and out
President Biden and
want to
President
bring
Trump,
proclaim
Father,
love
you
take this
of
Democrats
for guiding me.
ultimately
unite.
this
One of them, neither one of them,
amazing channel of your love
portion
we
shines
follow
never
in
be
Speaking me,
closed.
the Spirit and
So this is the
Father,
God is
reward.
and we are adopted.
along with his members.
Unsecure.
Not talking about period and not talking about understanding. Talking about the theocracy that
thank you for all
you
the
have
As a
given us
corporeal
continent
word.
and the three blessings and the blessing and
No
for
comparison.
the brand revival.
God.
Pray for
Your
the
word,
beginning
God.
How we can be ready
Thank
to
you
for
for
the
giving us
movement of the world,
understanding, dear God.
as
Bring us
our
movement
doctors
of
so
the
very
how much
We're grateful this morning that
we can
you sent us
for Dr.
knowledge
Young, who have ignited his
take
revival in India.
us
you have massaged our minds and
United
hearts
with him.
and
To
our
God, the
bodies
mission
and
of
let us
praying over
more
understand who we are as your
the
children.
blessing help of
result
We have declared
our
that we are your child.
that
Graham said,
to go and love the world.
you have the blessing.
To God, the
Blessing.
life
great restore
for your
people to them
Declaring this morning,
worldwide.
your
and
children, God,
The Catholic movement,
generation, and we're
Father,
proclaiming
for not
your children,
the
sons and daughters of the true parent, one of our sisters.
Generation of
We're
Harlem.
grateful this morning
You,
to
Father,
know
for
future
all
generations.
our younger families.
you're mature,
our
grow,
force
be the
generation
parent
for
the world needs.
generation
Our brothers that need to witness
ever
the
giving us
love and righteousness on behalf of your people, dear God.
That was
Dear
summer.
God, as we
you to reveal
that,
Welcome.
that bring you the joy and
and the second advent of the Lord.
Come on.
love and righteousness.
Hey,
God, the fruit of bear, dear God.
Again,
Most way.
now
We just want to just pour
Great.
this summer joy,
truly,
labor, dear God. To
Hallelujah.
witness today, dear God, the righteousness of God. Righteousness of God.
You.
이 몸이 주고 또 주고 일백번 건져 주고 백거리지도 되도 넋이라도 잃고 없고 임형할 일변탄시 가실 줄이 있으랴 임형한 일변탄시 가실 줄이 있으랴.
천지인 잠포문임께 키양배. 하루. Now we'll have 3 cheers of 억만세.
경구이합신 하늘 부모님 억만세. 전진 참부모님 억만세. Victory for the Chunshimon Residence Prayer 억만세.
Thank you, everyone. Do we have any announcements? No announcements. All right then, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless you. Thank you for coming. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.